Welcome to this I Learn interview. Today we are joined by Mr. Mark Kittah, an internal audit professional. And the purpose of these interviews is for us to have topical discussions with industry experts in terms of governance, risk, and compliance. And we hope you will enjoy the session with us today. Mark, welcome.
Thank you very much, Christy. It's been
It's
a
great
while.
to have you here. And yeah, it's been a while. I believe we'll have some insightful conversation today, and the
Definitely.
people will enjoy it. So I think before we jump into the interview itself, maybe just introduce yourself and give us a bit of background on yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity as well. So as you mentioned, my name is Mark. I'm currently the Chief Internal Auditor of First Bank Ghana, which is a subsidiary of First Bank Nigeria, the largest bank in Nigeria. Um, I I've been in the industry for like 18 years now, 18, 19 years. I started off initially from external audits. I spent about 8 years in external audits, and then I moved into mainstream internal auditing, starting my internal audit career at Bayport Financial Services. Then now Bayport Savings and Loans in Ghana, which is a subsidiary of the BML group in South Africa, Bayport Management Limited, I guess. So I spent about seven years in Bayport, and then moved on to First Bank Ghana. At that time, it was FBN Bank, but it's now First Bank. We've changed our name. So basically, I can say I've been in internal audit for maybe close to 12 years, and maybe another eight-ish year in external audits. In terms of qualification, I hold I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA. I'm also a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants in Ghana. I hold a master's degree in financial risk management. I'm a certified internal auditor and certified information systems auditor as well. Also have a first degree in economics. So basically, that is my background, my professional background. Personal, I am married with three lovely girls. I've been married for almost 16 years now. And even though I look pretty young, I've been in the marriage business for some time now. So I'll say that is a summary of my background and myself.
Great stuff. Thank you. Now, Mark, a lot of our conversation today, we've decided to talk about Ghana because I think people don't have a lot of exposure to what happens in terms of internal audit in Ghana, how you guys approach things, etc. So my first question to you is, I think it's difficult to generalize, but how open and mature do you believe companies in Ghana are towards establishing internal audit departments? And do most organizations in Ghana have internal audit functions? Not talking about your smaller businesses, talking about your corporates, your banks, etc.
Okay. So a brief history about Ghana. Those who don't know, we attained independence in 1957 from the British, the first Black African country south of the Sahara to attain independence. English-speaking country, of course, together with, I think, Nigeria, Gambia, and Sierra Leone in the West African region. So internal audit maturity. To answer that question, I'd want to segment the internal audit industry in Ghana, maybe about 2 or 3 segments. So we have the government sector, we have the I'd say regulated industries, i.e. banks, insurance, and all other regulated industries, and we have general industry. Now, in the regulated sector, there's a drive to align with international standards. So, in that sector, you might say, on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, you might say maybe around 7 thereabouts, and also depends on the links that the company has with maybe a group company. So usually, if you look at let's say banks, I'm in the banking industry, banks that have maybe the group being, let's say, a South African or maybe an European bank, usually the internal audit function maturity is quite high. But then if you have a bank that is purely local or has a subsidiary, which is a subsidiary of maybe a group company, which is one of the sub-Saharan Africans, maybe the maturity will be a little bit low. But of course, that is because of the environment in which we operate and the understanding that people have around internal. So, but if you go to other industries outside this regulated, then maturity is way lower down there because there's always a confusion around exactly what internal audit is and what internal audit is supposed to do. So overall, maybe I can say we are maybe above mid. Maybe if you combine everything, maybe we can say around 60 above, but you have to look at it based on the segment of industry that you're talking about.
Thank you, Mark. And next question to you is, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenge for internal auditors in Ghana?
Okay, so I would say the biggest challenge for internal auditors is the misunderstanding people have around what internal audit is and what internal audit is not. There's still a misconception on what internal audit actually is. They perceive internal auditors as police people supposed to catch wrongdoers and fish out fraud and all those things. Of course, those are part of the work that internal audit does. But if you look at the trajectory of internal audits, the internal audit profession over the years, it's more driving into the area of adding value, being a business partner, and helping the business to grow. So the difficulty that internal audit has from the experience I've had is the misconception that people have about the role. So even if you're an internal auditor and you have a clear understanding of exactly how the work is supposed to be done, sometimes it's difficult getting your stakeholders to understand exactly what internal audit is. And if you don't have a critical mass of people who think alike, it's difficult for you as an individual to break through that that misconception and ideas people have. So I'll say I would classify that as probably the biggest challenge the internal audit has. Then maybe you come to a second level, maybe talk about training. So in Ghana, and I think most of the West African countries, the primary qualification for internal auditor is to be a chartered accountant. So most often, internal audit is perceived as an extension of external audit. They don't see it as a discipline on its own that has its own standards, its own way of doing things, and its own focus. Luckily for me, I've experienced both external audits and internal audits, so I tend to appreciate the differences between these two audit functions. So I would say that is also a form of challenge. I would say, and because of that challenge, so the certification that people usually look out for internal auditors maybe to be a chartered accountant, which I think is a little bit problematic. I would rather go for CIA, CISA stuff, those qualifications. That is where I would more likely lean towards when it comes to looking for an internal auditor. So I would say from my experience and what I've known in the industry, I'd say those are the biggest challenge for the internal function in Ghana.
Great, thank you. Now moving into politics. Undeniably, politics play a part in our profession. So I want to know from you, I mean, if for South Africa, a word comes to mind today for an internal auditor, it's corruption. So I want to ask you, what are the biggest political challenges for you guys in Ghana at the moment?
Okay, so I don't know about South Africa, but in Ghana we have the Auditor General, who is basically supposed to audit all government institutions, ministries, and parastatals and all that. So when it comes to audits, usually that is where people look at. Recently, we have another unit that's been set up, Internal Audit Agency, which is more supposed to look at internal audit functions within these government institutions and parastatals and all that. So the Auditor General looks more at financial audits and stuff like that, and then internal audit is supposed to look more at the risk control, governance area. But again, it comes back to goal congruence and exactly what the expectation is of these two functions. So when it comes to audits, usually people tend to look more at the external, the Auditor General, who in my experience, I would say he's more of the external auditor. People don't speak so much about the Internal Audit Agency, even though it's quite a new body. It's not as old as the Auditor General. I believe, based on my experience and based on my experience and exposure, that if we really want to tackle things like corruption and stuff, the first place to look at probably is the Internal Audit Agency, empowering them, because they are more like within the system and they can more enforce changes around processes, policies, and all that, rather than looking at the Auditor General. Because the Auditor General will probably, it's always just like any external, it's dated. It looks at what has happened in the past and infractions that have happened already, the money and the loss has already occurred. In extreme cases, probably they will issue a surcharge where those involved will have to pay and all that. But I believe that if we are really supposed, if we really want to build our public institutions in terms of risk control and strengthen processes, I think where we should focus more should be the Internal Audit Agency. Yeah. But of course, it's a political, it's a government institution, and I mean, tends to be more of a political decision, more or less, I'd say. Yeah, maybe there's also there's not that understanding around how these things can help to build the public institution. So I'll say when it comes to politics, where the focus is always on the Auditor General, because that's where money, looking at money that have been lost and all that, that's where the focus is more, rather than the Internal Audit Agency. Yeah. I think in the not too long ago, I think we had issues where Auditor General had to be removed from office and over his age and all that. But of course, people read political meanings into it and all that, because he seemed to be a little bit more effective fighting corruption and all that.
Okay, so yeah.
I'll say that is the influence that politics has in that space.
Yeah, and they will have to build trust first and get a reputation, I believe. But it sounds positive. I would love for us to have something like that to support internal audit in the government sector. That would be amazing, I think.
Okay, so you don't have anything like that in South Africa when it comes to internal
we've got the Auditor General as well. Okay. But we don't have an internal audit agency. We've got the King report, as you know, that drives good governance and that has a lot in terms of internal audit, but not an agency overlooking it, especially not at a government level.
Okay.
So yeah. So that brings us to King, and my question to you is, in terms of guidance or the equivalent of King, I know you know the King report. Yeah. Is there anything that you guys refer to and use in Ghana, or do you guys also use King as an example?
Okay, so I know the King's report. I'll come again back to regulated institutions. So, for instance, for banks, BOG is a regulator. BOG has issued a specific corporate governance directive for banks and special deposit taking institutions that's supposed to regulate that component. And of course, that directive is based on our very recent history, where some banks had to be closed down because of poor governance and all that. So that is a document that you say it's industry specific to the banks. I know the insurance companies also, their regulator has a specific directive around governance in those spaces. So unlike the King's report that probably looks across all sectors, looking at general corporate governance across institutions, what I'm aware of is specific directives for specific industries, which almost speaks to the same idea around ethical leadership and accountability, just as the King's report seeks to promote. Also, when you look at a lot of the multinationals in this country as well, who have subsidiaries in countries where some of these regulations are applied, let's say Stanbic, which is from South Africa. I think Standard Bank in South Africa, but it's Stanbic.
Yeah, Standard Bank,
yeah. So definitely they would implement the King's report directives, and it will flow through the subsidiaries as well. So even though it might not be a direct adoption of it, the effects of these corporate governance directives are felt across their subsidiaries. So I'll say for now, I think when it comes to corporate governance directives, I would see it more as industry specific. Of course, when you go to the government institutions, so they have their own specific corporate governance directives that they've issued and that they have to abide by. But I'm sure with time there'll be a collective drive to more like unify all these directives into probably a document that should be a guideline for people who seek to implement good corporate governance.
Right, thank you. I know we've spoken about the maturity of organizations towards internal audit, but let's get to the next topic, and that is even above and beyond, and that is the question in terms of combined assurance. Do companies understand combined assurance? Do they implement the principles? Do they follow them? Or is it a foreign term to people?
It's known. The term is known, but I think the development is still nascent. Is still developing, even in the regulated, in the very regulated industries where these things are expected to be implemented more forcefully. It's still something that we are still trying to come to terms with. When you go into institutions, people are quite protective of their turf and their area and don't want others to get in and all that. But when it comes to combined assurance, there should be more of a collaboration from across all the assurance functions. We should be probably singing from the same hymn book and all that. But I wouldn't rate it as the maturity of it as very high. Again, it's industry specific. When you go to maybe a bank that has a bank that is a subsidiary of a group in a country where this has been implemented forcefully, of course, you'd see elements of that being done properly. But again, I think it's more on an individual level. I'm yet to see any directive that tries to enforce that in any institution. Even though we know it's a very good practice, saves time, and helps us to give a proper assurance around risk control and governance. I'm yet to see any. I don't think it's something that is being pushed from a directive point. It's more about individual organizations trying to improve their own control environments by implementing some of these things. So in terms of maturity, I wouldn't rate it as very high there.
Okay. Then, Mark, we spoke about the ACCA qualification a bit earlier, and I want to understand from you as head of your department, when you bring in staff, what skill set do you look for? Do you look for ACCA? Do you look for CISA, CIA? You did touch on that a bit earlier, but is it a mixed bunch? What is important to you?
Okay, so like I indicated, when it comes to regulated industry, again, outside a bank, for instance, the regulator specifically requires that the whoever leads an internal audit function should be a chartered accountant. That is the regulation. Anything in addition to that is just a plus. It's not more like a requirement. But again, I have both certifications. I'm an FCCA and then a CIA and CISA as well. So I am able to tell the value from all these certifications. I believe that the premium certification for an internal auditor should be a CIA. And you can even tell that even the ACCA and recently ICA Ghana have realized that internal audit itself is unique in a certain way that requires a specific curricula and training. So now ACCA has the challenge exams where you can write a one-off exams and get a CIA certification. And now ICA Ghana also, if you have an ICA certification, you can also write the same CIA challenge exam and then get a CIA certification, because they themselves have realized that when it comes to internal audit practice, those ACCA doesn't give you the entire toolkit to implement that. So again, I will always go for that. But again, it's a course that is not known to people like ACC and the CA, chartered accountant. It's not known. It's not known. Like, so if you set that as a requirement for recruitment, you might not get a lot of people applying for the role. So you definitely set the base, the standard, the basic standard, probably as a chartered accountancy program, someone who is started a chartered accountancy program or is into it already. And when they come in, you encourage them to take the CIA exams or a CISA or something to complement their certifications. So I will always go for CIA when it comes to an internal audit role. I will always go for the CIA, but it's difficult getting people with that certification.
Awesome. Okay. Now, the one profession that we need to work with closely is risk management.
Yeah.
And from my past experience working with African countries, risk management is often part of your business or your finance function. It's seen as purely a finance responsibility, and sometimes raises the question on the objectivity and independence on your risk function. What has your experience been like in this regard? How do you see risk management? Is there, similar to internal audit, an improvement on how they are perceived in the industry, the importance of the role of risk management, and really understanding how the function can complement a business?
Okay, so risk management is very, 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 very important, critical to every business. I mean, every business should have a form of risk management, whether formal or informal. There should be a form of risk management because it should guide every decision that is taken. Risk management should guide every decision that is taken. Again, when it comes to very regulated industries like the banks, for instance, insurance, I'm sure insurance as well, it's a requirement for you to have a separate risk management function. It's a requirement. So in all the banks that operate in Ghana, there's a separate risk management function. But when you go outside, industries that are not regulated, I'm yet to see a separate risk management function in such places, and it's understandable of its cost. I mean, if you want to do a proper risk management framework, it comes with cost, it comes with expertise, and the business might not be prepared to spend on these things when they don't probably see any tangible benefits from this. So in such environment, you have maybe internal audits, a person doubling as an internal control person, doubling as a risk management expert, and probably doing all these things. But then if you come to the regulated industry, banks especially, risk management function is expected to be an independent function, and protected, and it's a requirement for such industries. But again, how many banks do we have? We don't have. I mean, banking is just a small segment of probably the economy in terms of manpower and all that. But I think it's something that it's a conversation that needs to be had. To get it implemented as if not as a requirement, at least a guideline for industries. But again, we need to cross the hurdle of internal audit function itself and its recognition before you can start moving into all these other functions that are also good to have in a business.
Right.
But it's a very important. We use them extensively in our bank. It's a function that it's really valued and has a lot of value to the work done.
Now, Mark, let's talk about maturity, and I'm talking from systems and data specifically perspective in Ghana. Are your processes mostly manual, or are they automated? Do you do a lot of sample testing, or are you guys able to do data analytics? And maybe not just for your industry, but also the broader internal audit profession and the ability to start to move towards system-driven audits. What does it look like in Ghana?
Okay, so I think the most important thing for any systems audits to be implemented is, first of all, the expertise, not really the tools. I believe in the expertise first and the understanding of the people in charge of that. So most banks, I would say most banks will have a form of automated audit management system, a form of data analytics, a form of GRC that they use in the audits. But just having the tools is not enough. You need the people in charge, people using the tools to understand exactly how these tools can enhance their work. In that light, I would say in terms of maturity across industries, I wouldn't rate it as very high. I think a lot of the audits has historically been manual based, and a lot of sampling that is done. Even external audits, they do a lot of that. But it's changing. The trends are changing. I mean, now you can't do much without relying on data and analyzing its problem. So it brings back to the point that I stated from the beginning on the people rather than the tools. So I always say that you don't probably need to implement an audit, a data analytics tool to be able to do data analytics. You can always rely on our good old Excel, good old SQL, if you understand and you know exactly what you're looking for, and you can get very, very good results. Like, look at the whole Microsoft Office suites. There are a lot of components, Power BI, all these that comes with the suites, the package that you can use to do data analytics work. So people always I would say they put the cart before the horse, thinking that for us to implement data analytics, we need to get a data analytics tool, an AI engine that will analyze this and that. No. There's the people who are in charge of the functions who understand what they want to get out of data analytics. What are you looking for? Let's say you're analyzing data from a database. Are you looking at fields that have not been completed? If you are looking at fields that have not been completed, you can use Excel and SQL to do that equally well. You don't need a data analytics tool to do that. So the expertise is one that you need. And then one way, and this also leads us into the issue of certification and a program. So CIA and CISA program are heavy on these things. ACCA will not delve so much into it. They'll speak about it, but they'll go more into external audits, financial management, accounting, financial statements, stuff like that. So the training, certification is very important. That gives you a good basis, foundation for you to implement any data analytics, the program, in any system that you want to run.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what I've found is that some of the best data analysts that I've come across in internal audit are self-taught. They've got a very good basis in terms of internal audit, but it's self-taught. And it's thinking, it's pure logic. That is what it's about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Now,
most of you
let's get to
find
a trick.
people trying to lean more onto tools, and they can't do anything
Yeah,
unless
well, they
they
think
get.
it's an expert field.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, I've got a tricky question for you.
I'm ready for that.
I've got a tricky question for you. You've worked a lot with internal auditors in South Africa.
Yeah.
What would you describe as the main difference between internal audit people, approaches, auditors in Ghana and South Africa? What is the biggest difference that you've experienced?
Okay, so like I said in my intro, I moved from external audits into internal audits. My first internal audit experience was with Bayport, and of course it's a South African. It's a South African subsidiary. It's a subsidiary of a South African company. So I think that gave me a very good idea of the well, I say the internal audit landscapes across the two countries. So I think the first significant difference that I saw was the requirement to be an internal auditor in Ghana and South Africa. Like I indicated, in Ghana, we look more at a chartered accountancy program. But I realized in South Africa, the CIA is a more preferred qualification when it comes to internal audits, and that somehow leads to the issue of maturity of the internal audit function itself, and how internal audit is done. So I think because of the clear understanding of internal audits in South Africa, at least with the company that I work with, I don't know if it's cuts across all industries in South Africa, at least with the financial services company I work with that had a group office in South Africa. You realize that also shapes the way the internal work is done in South Africa. And you realize that the South African internal audit landscape is more aligned to what the internal audit standards require. It's more aligned with the internal audit standards. I couldn't say much about that in Ghana at the time that I joined, and from the experiences that I had before even being joined. So it translates to a little bit more matured internal audit environment in South Africa than in Ghana at that time. But I have to say that gap is bridging quite rapidly. Like I said, now the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana has entered into this agreement with the IIA, where you can write an exam, the CIA challenges, gets the CIA certification. So it's gradually building up the skill sets, and the internal landscape is now becoming more matured in Ghana. I believe that with time, if we go on the central review, would probably get to a point where we can compare favorably with every internal audit practice anywhere in the world. So I think that those are the differences that I saw with my little experience I've had with working in both in those two systems.
Okay. And then another question, you also work with internal auditors in Nigeria. I think important for us to notice you expressing your personal views. This is not your company's views.
Yeah.
But in terms of you working with auditors in Nigeria, how does that compare to auditors in Ghana?
Okay, so in my introduction, I indicated that Ghana is one of the British West African countries in West Africa. Nigeria is also the other one, and then Gambia and Sierra Leone. There's a lot of similarities between Ghana and Nigeria. There's not much there's not much difference between the two groups in terms of our history, our culture, even our food we eat and everything. So most often whatever is there is reflective of what's in Ghana, and what's in Ghana is reflective of what's in there. From the little like I'm saying from my experience, I think what I've seen about internal audits, Nigerian internal, it's very focused on controls, on controls, very focused on controls, and of course it's due to a certain history that they had. They also had a banking cleanup some years ago and all that. So I realized that their audit is very control focused, very control focused, and regularity and intensity of audits are a little bit higher there. As to that translates into a good control environment itself, it's also a different conversation. But I don't see much difference between their environment and ours. If for anything, I would say their environment is a step up on our environment when it comes to the focus of work that they do. I don't know if when it comes to certification, I have not heard of any collaboration between their accountancy, issue of chartered accountants Nigeria with IIA like we have in Ghana when it comes to writing a single exam to get a certificate. I'm not heard of anything like that. But again, just like Ghana, the premium certification and qualification for internal audit job is the chartered accountancy program, and I think the regulator equally requires that for you to lead an internal audit function, you should be a chartered accountant. So I'll say we are probably almost the same on the same level and thinking when it comes to internal audit.
Yeah. Well, in my experience, I've not dealt with a lot of internal auditors in Nigeria. I've dealt with quite a few in Ghana, but in terms of business in general, what I've experienced is that Nigerian business people tend to become very passionate and expressive, where in Ghana, people are subdued and they remain very professional and astute. So I think that to me is, in my experience, something I've definitely seen from a business perspective.
Yes. I think that's a correct observation you made. Yeah. So I think there are cultural nuances when it comes to that. The Ghanaian's approach to business and issues is different from
absolutely
our cousins.
But isn't it amazing how you guys have so many similarities, but still your approach is different? And I think there's a lesson for us in that, we might be cousins, we might be different, but there's a way for us to agree on things and move forward, which is wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, I want to ask a personal question, Mark. What is work-life balance like in Ghana?
That's an interesting question. To get a good work-life balance, yeah, you have to work towards it. You have to make a conscious effort to have a work-life balance. First and foremost, traffic traffic alone can take a lot of your time. You can easily spend 3 hours of your day in traffic.
Sure.
Yes, you can easily spend 3 hours, especially if you staying a little bit far from the city center. So that kinds of take a little bit away from that. I think what most institutions have been doing these days. In the past, you have people accumulating their leave for 15 years and 10 years and all that. So you realize a person is due for retirement and they can go on leave for about a year before the actual retirement day because they have so much accumulated leave. Yeah, so I think one thing that has been done is not allowing people to roll over their leave into the following year. So you are supposed to take all your leave in the year before the following year. If you don't, you lose, you forfeit it. So I think that is forcing people to at least use that time to for themselves to do things that interest them. Again, one thing that I also realized that the lack of green spaces also I think it's an issue when it comes to allowing people to be able to enjoy nature and then I mean just take time off work and enjoy nature. But of course, that is also changing. There are lots of activities, especially outside Accra, where you can engage in to spend time for yourself. One thing that I've always thought of. I mean, so most businesses have health insurance for staff, and you look at my industry, for instance, banking. You realize that because of the sedentary nature of the work, you have a lot of issues, a lot of health issues around heart, obesity, and I mean all those lifestyle issues. I've always thought that if I had my own business, I would either create a gym within the business and make it a KPI for people to exercise every day. So if you do an exercise minimum number a week, you probably get a point on your scorecard. I mean stuff like that. And you'll be surprised how much that can reduce your medical bill that you pay because people will not get sick from all this. So I think a lot of businesses are taking the cue on that and trying to. With my bank, for instance, where I work, a lot of work that the HR does to ensure that people have a good work-life balance. They always bring people on time every Thursday. I think every Thursday we have a therapeutic Thursday. They bring health professionals, people to teach us on how to manage ourselves, how to improve our social lives, and have a very good work life. So, but it's industry specific and company specific. If you don't make a deliberate effort towards it, you can't have it.
Yeah. Now you spoke about your own company. Here's the next question. Do you want to remain an auditor for the rest of your career, or do you think there will be a change somewhere along the line someday?
I really do enjoy my job, and no doubt about that. I don't think you get a lot of auditors saying that, but I do enjoy my job. I believe also that there's a lot of other things that an auditor can easily slide into and perform. So even though I'm doing audits now, I don't close myself to other opportunities that are outside that's good. And I think the nature of work that I've done has also given me a very good insight into probably the processes in all units, at least every industry that I work in, all the units, all the various sectors within. I have a very good idea of their processes, what they are supposed to do, the risks that is the risk that is peculiar to them, the controls that are expected to be there, and all that. So I don't see myself restricted within the space. I believe that I can always 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 switch to a different area if I want to. So
Yeah.
I'm also doing the CFA program. I wrote my final exams not too long ago. I'm waiting for my results. I hope I pass. That also opens another avenue for me when it comes to portfolio management, fund management, and asset management and all that. So the door is not closed. I have a very open mind. And
Right.
let's see what happens.
What the future holds, yeah.
Yes, what the future holds.
Mark, what is your advice to youngsters entering the profession?
So I always talk about the essential skills for an internal auditor. And surprisingly, on the top of my list is not technical skills, but soft skills, communication, writing, um, getting people on your side. Because for an internal auditor, you really need to get people to understand your perspective in order to buy into what you're doing. Then, so those soft skills are very important that you should take time to really develop them. It's important to develop those soft skills. Technical skills, so certification, for instance, if you intend to make a profession in internal audit, I'd always advise you to at least do the CIA program, the CISA program. The CIA has other programs, even though IIA has other programs, even though CIA is the flagship certification in there. They have other programs there that you can also do. And then also making sure that you are in line with modern trends. So currently you can tell that the trend is more about big data, data analytics, AI, and all these things have applications for internal audits.
Yeah.
If for nothing at all, if you are in a bank that is implementing their own AI chat box, you need to understand how it works because you might have to audit it one day. You need to understand how the code was written, what the code is supposed to do, what is it doing what it's expected to do. Where is the data being stored? When we load data into that chat box for analysis, where does it store? Who has access to it? Is it secured? In case wherever it's stored is there's a problem, can we get a backup? I mean, so you need to understand money trends, and then educate yourself, and gain the relevant skills to function in that environment. Because at the end of the day, the internal auditor is a consultant to the business. So if there's a problem in the business, the internal auditor will be called upon. And how can you afford advice if you don't understand the business and the trends and what is going on? So I think those are the big areas that I'll speak of. And again, when it comes to personal issues of integrity, ethics, those are very, very important. And of course, this is part of the CIA program. You spend your time on issues around maintaining your independence, objectivity, and all that. So those are things that I would advise anybody who is planning on entering the internal audit profession to have.
Right. Now, in closing, please share with us, what is your life motto or your favorite quote?
Okay, so there's this quote I came across recently. I think it's attributed to Mark Twain. Mark Twain, I did a little bit of research. I think it's either wrongly attributed to him, but I mean, it's a quote that I think resonates with me a lot. It says that it's not what you know that will get you into trouble. It's not what you don't know that will get you into trouble, but it's what you know and we are very sure of that will get you into trouble. And I think the moment I saw that quote, I realized that it speaks to the work that I do. Yeah. Not always believing that what you know is right, trying to have a curious mind and understand. Probably what you know and you think is right is not right. Seeking evidence, evidence and not believing just what anybody says because you trust that person and all that. So it's a quote that came to me not too long ago, but I think it resonates so much with the work that I do, that I think it's a motto that I'll carry on for
I love it.
for a
Yeah.
long time. Yes. So usually I have a logbook, and I try to write down the quotes that I came across every day.
Yeah.
So I have a book bag. I write a quotes every day.
Right.
So I think it's one of the quotes that will stay with me for some time.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, for a while, yeah.
Mark, it's been great speaking to you today. Thank you so much for joining us. And I believe people will find a lot of value in this conversation.
And I'm also grateful for the opportunity you've given me to share my knowledge and experience with like-minded persons. And it's my hope and that whoever listens to this interview would gain some value and insights into the work we do, and even just insights about life and all that. So I'm most grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mark. For those of you that are not aware of what iLearn does, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, follow us, look at our new content coming out. We will be doing more interviews. We are a training company. We've done some training with Mark in the past, and our focus is to create impactful audit training to internal auditors and to make a change in people's lives. We've got an online training platform. If you are interested in that, get in contact and we can do a demo and show you how powerful it could be to your business.